Go ahead and have a seat. I am so grateful and excited that you are here, that you trust us with your Sunday morning. Welcome to New City. If we haven't gotten the chance to meet, my name is Justin. I'm one of the pastors here on staff. And today we have a very special Sunday. You may have noticed a card on your chair that says Move of God, because you've caught us in the middle of this series. And so if you are new here, I want to say a special welcome to you. All the things that Ryan said, we want to get you connected. We want you to be a part of the life of what God is doing here at New City. This is not going to be a normal Sunday for us, and so if you're like, hey, I want to check out what it's like at New City, you're going to get a really good picture of what it's like at New City culturally. Like, you're going to get a really good picture of the kind of people we are, the kind of people that fill this room every Sunday, that kind of a thing, what we value, what we're into. But it's also going to be a slightly different Sunday. And so let me kind of just start like this. Sometimes, and this is something that you don't often hear pastors say, sometimes I have trouble. In fact, a lot of times I have trouble believing God. Do you have this trouble? Like I don't mean believing in God. Like, I am so convinced, like beyond a shadow of a doubt, that God exists, that He became a human being in Jesus, that He lived and that He died, that He rose from the dead to save me from my sin. Like, I am convinced of that. I don't struggle with that kind of a doubt. I know some of you might. That's not what I'm talking about. Well, what I'm talking about is not believing in God, not believing that there is a God or that He is who He says He is, but believing that He will do what He promises. Believing that He is good to fulfill the things that He says that He wants to do in my life. To believe that He is good to do what He's called me to do through me. To provide the things that I need. To change the circumstances that I need changing. Those kinds of things. I oftentimes have a hard time believing God. I don't know if it's like the way that I was like raised or something that happened to me or something like that I've got some sort of like trust issues, but I see God moving all the time, and I've heard stories of God moving everywhere throughout history, and I believe that He did that. Like, I believe God moves, but sometimes I just have a hard time believing that He's going to move with me, where I'm at, with what I'm doing, through us, in my time, my place, in my situation. I have a hard time believing that God will move, that He'll answer the prayers that I'm praying, that He'll provide for the needs that I'm asking Him to provide for, that He would act in the ways that I'm asking Him to act. And you need to know, like, I'm not asking God for wild things. I'm asking God for things that He told me to ask Him for. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, God, I just pray for that new Ferrari, and then I'm like filled with doubt about that. I should be filled with doubt about that. I doubt God's going to do that. But what I mean is, God, I want You to save this person. That coworker of mine, like, I want You to invade their life, meet them where they are, transform everything for them, and let them encounter Jesus and surrender everything to Him and experience the transformation that I've experienced in Jesus. Like, praying those kinds of prayers. Or God, I'm praying that You will heal this person of this sickness. I'm praying that You would provide this thing that I know that You want to provide. God, I pray that You would end injustice. I pray that You would reach the lost. I pray that Your kingdom would come on earth as it is in heaven, in our situation, in our city, in our neighborhood, in my workplace, whatever the case may be. Like, those kinds of prayers. About you, but I oftentimes pray those kinds of prayers wondering if God really will move, and frankly, just doubting that He really will. Am I the only one? Good. Like, and we're in the middle of this Move of God series, and this is actually the final week. We're not in the middle. We're in the final week of this Move of God series, where we've said that we're going to consecrate ourselves, make ourselves available for God's use, and we're going to ask Him to move in our church, in our city. We're going to ask Him to do like impossible things that we could never do on our own. Like, we want to experience a real move of God. And we've been spending the last 3 weeks just asking God to move. And I wonder if you're like me, that sometimes you believe that God might not. That like, you know what, like it's actually likely that nothing will happen. Like our theme verse for this series is this one, Habakkuk 3:2. The prophet, he says this, he says, Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds. Lord, repeat them in our day. In our time, make them known. This is a prophet later on in the Old Testament who's heard of things like God creating the world by speaking. He's heard of things like God freeing his people from slavery by parting a Red Sea. He's heard of things like people being raised from the dead and sickness being healed, being saved from famine. He's heard of like the sun standing still. Like he's heard of some incredible things. And he's saying, God, I've heard of your fame. I've heard of your deeds. I've heard the stories of what you can do. I want you to do them here. I want you to do them now. I want you to do them in our circumstances today. I want to be involved in these, gods. And I really want the faith of Habakkuk. Like I really want the faith of somebody who's like, hey, God, you can do these things. I'm expecting you to do these things in my time, in my day. But oftentimes I will pray those things. And listen, I believe God moves. Like, I'm not saying God is not active. I really believe God is active in the world. I see it all the time. I've heard plenty of stories of it from the past, like Habakkuk, but also I see it happening all over the place. God is moving like crazy in our country and around the world in ways that he hasn't moved in decades. And it's incredible. And still, I find myself wondering if God will do it here. I still actually sometimes find myself doubting that God will do it here. And today is a very special Sunday in the life of our church. It's Offering Sunday for this season of Move of God. And what's going to happen later on is that many of you have come to this service knowing what you're going to bring, what you've got. Many of you maybe already have this written on your commitment card, and you know what you're going to bring here at the end of our service. You know what you're going to give. You've been praying about it for the last 2 weeks, and you know what you're going to do, but maybe you're wondering, like, is it actually going to make a difference? Like all of this consecration language, all of this making ourselves available for God's use, all of wanting God to move in and through us, like, is it really actually going to make a difference, or does God just move in other people's lives and in other people's churches and in other people's cities? And so that's what I want to talk about this morning is God able and will he move in our midst, in our time, in our day? Now here's the thing. Whether or not God moves, I want to be a kind of person at the end of the day. This is a really important thing. That I have devoted my life to making sure that by the end of my life, when I'm looking back on what I did, that I can look back and say, I surrendered everything. Like I gave my all. I went all in on what Jesus was calling me to. I don't want to look back on my life and say, like, maybe there was more on the table for what God was inviting me into. There was more that I could have given. There was more that I could have surrendered. There was more yeses to be given back to Jesus. Like there was more there, and I just didn't access it because I didn't say yes. I didn't give enough. I didn't consecrate my time or my energy or my emotions or my thoughts or my money or my resource, whatever. Like I don't want to end up at the end of my life wondering if I actually said yes to Jesus' invitation. Like I want to make sure that there's no doubt at the end of my life that I've given everything that I could, imperfectly, but given everything that I could to the call of Jesus, the invitation of Jesus on my life. But then the question still is he going to move? Is he going to move? Will it make a difference? So if you've got your Bible, first of all, if you've got a copy of your scriptures here, a physical copy, go ahead and hold it up. We do this in New City every Sunday because we believe that these words in these books are inspired by God himself, though they were written by human authors, every single word on that page is exactly the way God wants it to be. It's his own words, and it doesn't really matter what I say up here if it doesn't match what God is saying in here. It's not my wisdom, it's not my opinion that's going to transform your life. It is the word of God that is going to transform your life. So if you don't have a Bible, we would love for you, if you don't have a Bible, you want one, and money's an issue, we'd love for you to go over to the New Here area after service and grab a free Bible. That's our gift to you. But if you've got your Bible, go ahead and turn to Ephesians 3. Turn to Ephesians 3. With this question in mind, will God move? Will God move? Now, Paul is the writer of Ephesians, and he's been writing 3 chapters of basically this just deep, like heavy theology of the good news of Jesus. He's been talking about all the things that God has done in history to save his people, and he's going to end that section with this benediction that we're going to read. But right before he gets to the part that we're going to read, what he is doing is he is saying that he is praying for a move of God among the people that he's writing to. Like he is saying, hey, this is the thing that I want most for you, that I want God to do in our midst, in your lives, in you. Like these are the things that I want God to do. And then he ends with this kind of like benediction at the end of that sentence. This is what he says in chapter 3, verse 20. Paul says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Now, did you see that? Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine. Like I read this verse and I started thinking about this phrase that Paul uses, immeasurably more. Immeasurably more. Some of your translations might say like more abundantly or abundantly more or above and beyond, and that's fine. But one of the things you need to know is that in the Greek, and this word that's translated in my translation, immeasurably more, it's supposed to be like hyperbolic. It's supposed to be this kind of like crazy, literally immeasurable type of word where he's saying, like literally Paul is saying like, hey, like you've got an imagination. You've got something that you can imagine God doing. God is able to do literally immeasurably more than what you could ever ask or imagine. Immeasurably more. This is a massive, massive word. It's supposed to be hyperbolic. It's supposed to sound extreme. When Paul says immeasurable, that's what he means. He means God can move in a way that we cannot measure. And here's the thing, we can measure a whole lot. Like we can measure a whole lot. We know how many cells are in the human body. It's 37 trillion. 37 trillion cells are in your body working right now if you're an adult. 37 trillion. We can measure that. Grains of sand on earth. There's estimate 7.5 sextillion grains of sand on earth. Somebody counted. We can measure that. In the stars in our galaxy, maybe 400 billion stars in our galaxy. We can measure that. We can measure how many people come to New City on a Sunday. We can measure how many people get baptized, how many people get saved. We can measure dollars given. And here's the reality, is I can actually only ask God for what I can measure. Like I can only ask God for what I can imagine, and I can only imagine what I can measure. Does this make sense? Like I've got a picture in my head of what God might do or what I want to do, but I can only imagine what I can measure. But Paul says God can do even more than that, and that God actually moves in ways that we can't measure, that are beyond our ability to count or to measure or to imagine. Like here's when I surrendered my life to Jesus when I was 20, I knew he was calling me into vocational ministry. I knew that he was calling me to do something. I mean, what I had in mind was not what I'm doing now. Like when I knew God was calling me into ministry, what I had in mind, what I had imagined is that I would preach some sermons and that I would maybe visit some hospitals and I would get coffee with some people. And I think probably at that time I thought I would organize some games for a youth group. And that's when I felt the call of God on my life to go into vocational ministry, I think that's what I imagined. But then I started to follow Jesus and to follow him on his call on my life and start to be in leadership and start to go on mission with him on my college campus and started getting to actually lead people to Jesus and start getting to be used in the transformation of people's lives. Like I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but it'll change your life. Like Jesus will change your life. And the other way he changes your life is by using you to change other people's lives. And it's really, really incredible. Like I would make friends with people on my campus and I'd start hanging out with them. I'd invite them to go play disc golf with me and stuff, which is actually how I was brought to Jesus. But I would invite them to come play disc golf with me, and we would have conversations about life, and it would be like me, the senior in college, and this sophomore, or this freshman, and we'd be just walking together, and eventually what I would see is I would see people go from like completely non-believer to like loving Jesus more than anything in the world. And seeing that process just absolutely changed my life. I've told a story about this guy. This is the first guy I really ever got to lead to faith. His name was Steve, and his dad was a card-carrying member of the Ku Klux Klan. Like, he didn't grow up in a great household, right? And he had lots of really bad things happen to him as a child. And so it was no wonder. I completely understood that by the time he had gotten to college, he thought there could not be a God, and if there was a God, he was evil. Because how could a good God let all of the things happen to him that did happen to him? And I remember, like, this dude, like, you looked at him and you thought, he's not going to believe. Like that's not somebody who's going to give their life to Jesus. Like that dude, this dude was huge, massive, intimidating. I was older than him, and I still was like, that guy could kill me if he wants to. I don't know. I'm not going to do that, God. Like I don't know if he's probably a lost cause. He's probably an impossible case. But I kept, and I don't think this was a coincidence. I don't think it wasn't my intention at all. But I think like I just kept being put in Steve's life, or Steve kept being put in my life. And eventually, like, I'm spending lots of time with Steve just talking about life and trying to share Jesus every chance that I got. And he started to come and hang out with the Christian group that I was a part of on campus. And he would even come to our worship nights. He's not a believer. He was a devout atheist. He didn't believe anything that we were saying, but he would come to these worship nights, and he started getting more consistent. He started to keep coming. And then eventually, Steve started to bring friends. He started inviting his friends to these worship nights, and we were all kind of like looking at each other going like, is Steve a Christian now? Like he's inviting more people than we are. You're like, what's going on? And we would ask Steve, like, what is going on? Like, are you like a Christian now? And he's like, no, not at all. Not at all. I just really love the music, and you guys are awesome. And so I'm going to keep hanging out. And you're like, all right, fine. And he keeps inviting more and more people, and then eventually, it just happens. Is you start to wonder, like, is God going to save Steve? And then he does. And God gives his life, or Steve gives his life to Jesus. And he's transformed. And I remember I had graduated college, and me and Rebecca had just gotten married, and we had just gone to bed. And one of my friends who was still in college texted me at like 10 p.m. And we were in bed because we were married now, we were old, and we were in bed at 10 p.m. It's even earlier now. But I remember looking at my phone and seeing my friend's text message, and he says, you need to call Steve. And I was like, why? And he's like, just call him. And so then I called Steve and I said, hey man, like, the guy told me to text you or to call you, what's up? And Steve says, I'm getting baptized next week. And I just start bawling. And then that's like the end of that story for a while. Like God used me to transform somebody's life. I don't get the credit for that, but I got to be involved. I got to be used. God moved in my time and in my situation. And it was incredible. And I started telling that story all the time. Like there was many more stories like that, but I started telling stories like the stories about Steve. And I was actually teaching several years later at a youth group camp. And I was teaching on the joy of sharing the good news with your friends. And I was telling them this story of Steve and how exciting and thrilling and amazing it is to be used by God in somebody else's life. And I was telling them that story, and that was session 1, and then there was session 2 that night. So I told them that story in the morning, and then there would be like a whole afternoon, and then that night I would teach again. In the span between me teaching that in that morning and then me teaching that in the evening, Steve texted me for the first time in like years. He texted me and he said, hey, I just want you to know I still have the Bible that you gave me my sophomore year of college. It was a Bible that actually I had written my own name in pen because it was my Bible for a very long time that I actually stole from the pew of the church that I grew up in. They weren't giving it away. I took it. God, what man meant for evil, God means for good. It's a stolen Bible that I gave away in Steve's sophomore year of college. He said, I still have that Bible. And I want you to know that I've given it to another person who I've led to Jesus and who I'm discipling. And you just got this other feeling of like, oh my gosh, God. Like you are allowing me to be a part of what you are doing in the world. Like that is incredible. That is incredible. God moves. So I thought what I was going to be doing was leading youth group games. But then God started giving me the opportunity to lead people to Jesus, to mentor them and walking with him. And I was like, man, like, no, I think this is what God is calling me to do. Like, I'm just going to do this full time. Like, I'm going to get to just lead people to Jesus and disciple them, mentor them, and it's going to be incredible. Well, then I get this opportunity to kind of lead this college ministry, to kind of restart this college ministry. And what I didn't know is like, yes, I would be leading people to Jesus and then discipling them, mentoring them, and what it means to walk with Jesus. But then the craziest cool thing happened is I got to actually equip a team of college students to do exactly what I got to do in college, where I said, hey, this is the life right here. Here's how we're going to do this, and send them. And it was incredible. The first year we had like 7 leaders, and then the next year we had 14, and then the next year we had like 26, and the next year we had 56. We actually had this really cool moment at a leadership training where we had all of our leaders, all 56 leaders, once the thing grew, and we put some of them on stage to honor them. And what we did is we put all the leaders up on stage, and we said, like, if this is your first year of leadership, like, we want to honor you. And so all the leaders are up there. Like, first year is like half of the leaders up there, like 20-something leaders. And it's like, we want to honor you. This is your first year of leadership. This is going to be incredible. And then we would say, okay, now you get off the stage, and this is your second year of leadership. You stay on the stage. And then we asked the people who are in their first year of leadership that were off the stage, we said, hey, of anybody in stage, if God used any of the people on stage to reach you, and you are now doing what you're doing because of that person, raise your hand. Every hand goes up. And then we said, okay, if you have done with your second year of leadership, go ahead and get off the stage. If you're in your third year of leadership, stand up. And you've got people who've only been leading for 2 and for 1 year, right where you're sitting. And we say, if one of these people, probably 15, if one of these people on stage was directly tied to you doing what you're doing now, to you following Jesus, helping other people follow Jesus, if one of these people on stage is directly tied to you being in the spot that you're in now, raise your hand. Every hand goes up. As we said, okay, leaders who've been leading for 3 years, you get off the stage. And we get to, it was a college ministry, we get to our seniors. Those who've been leading for 4 years and those who helped start the ministry. There's 7 of them. And there are just dozens and dozens and dozens of people right here. And we asked, if you are in the spot that you're in directly because of one of the people on stage, raise your hand. And every hand goes up. And what those students got to see is that the sacrifices that they made, the yeses that they put on the table for Jesus, that they put their freshman year of college, God has multiplied and multiplied and multiplied year after year to where they may have only been able to reach one more, two more, maybe three more, but God could take that and he could reach all 56 of the people in the room just with that one yes. And then what I got to experience is, oh my gosh, I think God might get to use me, or not get to, God want to use me to help people become people who follow Jesus, help others follow Jesus, and then help others follow Jesus. That's incredible. That's amazing. Then I got a call from a church that said, hey, we plant churches all the time and we're looking to plant another one. Would you be interested in coming and training with us, and maybe we'll plant a church together? And so we say, yeah. And we come, and eventually we move to Austin with about 10 people who moved to Austin with us, many of whom, actually all of whom are in the room right now. We gathered in our living room. And we began to pray and to invite people. And at first it was like all the people in the room, I was the only one who knew all of them because I was the one who invited them all. But then very quickly it became to where like more and more people were showing up, and I had never met them before. And then more and more people were showing up, and it's like crowded, like it's too crowded. And like I've got a nice house. I like my house, but like it wasn't super huge. It's not super huge. And we'd have people like sitting around corners where like their back is against the wall. I'm on the other side of the wall talking. I don't know who's around the corner. They're listening to me like they're listening to a podcast. And I don't know who it is. And then people started bringing like their kids and stuff like that. And we were like, our kids situation, childcare, they can go and play in the backyard with my kids. And then that'll be what it is. And then we're like, okay, well, like, what do we do? What do we do now? Like this is what I imagined. This is kind of what I thought, but like what's God going to do now? And so then we started doing these public events. And what I imagined was people who love church planting, who really want to be involved with starting new churches, would show up and they'd get really excited. And what I discovered was like, it wasn't people who were really excited about church planting. It was people who were desperate for God. And it wasn't people who all looked like me. That's another thing that I thought it would be. Like I thought it would just be people who were like me, like 30-year-old, like wife, 2 kids. Like that's what I thought. It wasn't that. None of you were that. Some of you were that. Most of you came later if you're that. It was a whole diverse group of people from every single walk of life, all kinds of spiritual backgrounds and stuff like that. And it was incredible. Like I never thought that people would show up to those events thinking, I'm not really a follower of Jesus, but I'm willing to try something. Or like, I actually have a terrible experience with church, but I'm willing to try this. Like, I didn't think that we were going to reach those people. And God brought them. And then we launched Sunday services. You know how many people showed up to launch Sunday? It's 300 people. 300. All to come check out this new church. And guys, I thought I was going to be leading games for youth groups. That's not bad. It's a good thing. All those small things are really, really good. But I could have never have imagined what God was going to do 12 years ago when I surrendered my life to Jesus. My imagination has grown quite a bit. Quite a bit. If you know the vision of New City, like our long-term vision is we want to see a community, a New City community in every neighborhood in Austin, and a New City church in every direction. What we mean by that is north, south, east, west, and central. And you're thinking, well, like, oh, man, like that's really big. If you got this room right here, this is what it is now. Like, how is it going to become that? Well, that's what's in my head. That's what I am able to imagine now because God has grown my imagination to know that He can do some bigger bigger things than what I thought he could do at the very beginning. So we've got these big things. Like, I don't think in terms of like games anymore, like youth group events and stuff like that. I don't think in terms of that anymore. I think in terms of like global movements. But it's still only what I can measure. It's still only what I can measure. What I can imagine has gotten a lot bigger. But Paul says God wants to do immeasurably more than that. Immeasurably more than that. And there are so many things we cannot measure. We cannot measure God's transformation of a heart. We cannot measure the kind of impact that you have by opening a door and saying welcome to somebody who maybe didn't think they were going to get the kind of welcome that they got when they arrived at church. You cannot measure the kind of impact that you're having when you serve in Kids City by showing the love and teaching the love of Jesus to our kids. Like, you cannot imagine, you cannot measure the impact that you're having there. You cannot measure the impact that you're having when you show up early for pre-service prayer and you pray over a seat. You don't know who's going to sit in that chair, but God knows. You cannot measure the kind of impact that God is going to have when that person sits in that seat. You can't measure that kind of stuff. Another thing that I could never have imagined and never measured was who was going to be involved. This is by far my favorite part of getting to be a part of planting New City, is you guys. This is not me sucking up to you. I really do mean this. That I could not have measured. That I could not have imagined. I can imagine a room full of people. I could not have imagined you. And it has been the greatest joy of my life to be able to live on mission with Jesus, with you. To do what God is calling us to do together alongside of you. And what we have right now is an incredible opportunity to together say to God, we believe that you can do immeasurably more. But how's he going to do it? Well, check it out. That same passage in Ephesians, still up there? No, here we go. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. Did you see that? Like, how does God plan to accomplish immeasurably more? How does God plan to do immeasurably more? It's through you, his church. He plans to do immeasurably more than you could ever ask or imagine. How? He plans to do it in and through you, through us. And you might be in here thinking, like, I'm not the kind of person that God can use. I'm not the kind of person that God does stuff like you're talking about through. I'm not the kind of person that God does stuff like you're talking about in. Like, I'm just not that kind of a person. I'm going to live a quiet life. I'm going to just stand kind of aside and observe and watch God work through other people, but he's not going to work through me. He's not going to do the kind of thing that he's doing here. And I can tell you, like, I can totally relate to that feeling. I just opened up with that idea that I struggle with that as well. Like, God's not going to use me in that way. God's not going to move in my circumstance. Like, I've heard of his fame, I've heard of his deeds, but he's not going to do it in my time. He's not going to do it in my place. He's not going to do it among my group of people. So he might use you, but he's not going to use me. Everything. I completely understand that. But that's not what Paul says. That's not what God says through Paul. What God says through Paul is that he plans to do immeasurably more in you by the power that is at work in you. His church for his glory. And we have the opportunity together. That is huge. Together, as a family of God, we have the opportunity today to tell God we believe him. To say, I'm not holding anything back. I'm all in on what you want to do in our time, in our day, through me. I'm all in on that. So you've got a commitment card here. And I want everybody to grab your commitment card. If you are new here, then you should feel no pressure to do what I'm about to do. The people who are a part of New City have known that this is coming. This has been a family type of a thing for us and stuff. If you are new here, we don't want you to feel any pressure to do that. We want you to get involved with New City. We want to get to know you, come alongside you. If you do feel led, you are welcome to this. The invitation is open, but I want to make sure that you know that what we are doing is I'm not trying to manipulate anybody into doing something that God is not calling them to do. If you've got this commitment card here, what you will see is a place for you to put your name, your phone number, your email, and to check one of 3 boxes. First one, I currently do not give regularly to New City, and I am committing to become a regular giver by tithing. Tithing just means giving 10% of your income. If you want more information on that, last week's sermon is up on YouTube. The next box says, I'm committing to increase my regular gift to New City by the following amount as my move of God offering. Meaning, like, I already tithe, and I want to increase that monthly or weekly or whatever rhythm you've got going. I want to increase that by this amount as my move of God offering. Or, third box, in addition to my regular gift to New City, I am committing to give the following amount one time as my move of God offering. Meaning that I don't need to increase my regular gift. I'm going to keep that going, and one time I'm going to give the amount that God is calling me to bring as my move of God offering. And what I'm going to invite you to do in just a second is to many of you, if you've been walking with us for the last couple of weeks, that you've had a card at home with you. Mine's been in my Bible last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Just praying over it. Rebecca and I praying about what God is calling us to give. And some of you, you've been praying over this. Maybe you've already got the writing on it. And you brought it here ready to bring it. Others of you, maybe you're still praying. Maybe you don't know. We're going to give you a moment to think about that, to pray about that. We're going to spend a good amount of time in this service where you have the freedom to be with God. Not alone. It's you and God, but you need to know that it's you and God and the family of God around you. So we're doing this together. You can take your card and let it represent your gift. Let it represent your commitment to give as a way of saying, God, I am all in on what you want to do in me, through me, in our church, through our church. I'm all in on you doing immeasurably more. Here's the thing. You're literally going to write a number on this. You're literally going to write a measurement on this card. And that measurement, you're going to see that. And that's it. That's all it is a measurement. Unless it's given to God, then it becomes potential for immeasurably more. And so what I want you to do is if you're single, you do this yourself. If you are married, I want you to do this with your spouse. Is at some point, the next 2 songs, you can come up here and if you want to, you can kneel at the stage, use it as an altar. Pray over your gift and ask God to use it in ways that you cannot imagine and that you cannot measure. Ask God to do immeasurably more than you could ever ask or imagine. And then lay your gift at the altar as a way of saying, I'm all in. I'm consecrating myself to you, God. I'm making myself available to you. I'm making this available to you for your purposes, because you can do immeasurably more with it than what I can. You can spend all the time you want up here. It may get crowded. That's okay. We're the family of God. You're going to rub shoulders. It's crowded in here. Your seats are close together. You're going to rub shoulders with people. That's okay. We're the family of God. If you want to stand here or kneel here and spend time praying over your card, that's great. If you want to pray over it where you're sitting and then bring it up, that's great. You have all the freedom in the world. But you come and you take the card and you just lay it down here, face down, with the Move of God logo up. And here's the last thing that I want you to know. I know it from experience, and I expect to keep on experiencing it. That God will blow your expectations out of the water. My expectations for what God is going to do in this moment are astronomically high. And God says, just watch. Just watch. I can do immeasurably more than what you can ask or imagine. And so if you come with low expectations of what God will do, maybe all you need to do is take a step of faith and give God the opportunity to do immeasurably more than what you can imagine. And your imagination of what God could do will grow. So, Father, I pray for this moment. God, it's just going to be a few minutes. But God, it has the potential to transform lives, not just because of the money that's going to be given, but because of the act that we're participating in right now, where we're saying, I'm surrendering this to God. It's significant, not because money is being given, God, but it's significant because people are acknowledging that everything belongs to you, and they're saying yes to you, God. Father, as a church, we say yes to you. Whatever it is that you're calling us to, we say yes. Our yes is on the table. We are available to you. I pray that you would be with us in this moment, and that you would do immeasurably more than what we could ask or imagine.